Thank you all for being here this morning. It's great to have you here. My name is Tim Sink. I'm president of the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce, at least for the time being, through today. But we're really happy to be here in Concord High School for this event. So a big shout out to Concord High School and the Concord School District for hosting us today. Thank you. And also a big thank you to Novus Engineering. We are very grateful. Novus is our sponsor this morning, as you can see. Representing Novus today is Chris Nato, who's also a Chamber Board member, Morgan Dunson, and Megan Benincasa. So thank you all for being here and for your generous support of this event. Always like to recognize some of our elected officials that are here with us. Delighted to have Mayor Byron Champlin with us. Thank you, Mayor, for joining us. Also, Ward 5 Councilor Stacy Brown is with us. Thank you. And several of our Concord School Board members. You're going to be hearing from the School Board President, Pamela Walsh, but also with us today is Brenda Hastings, Liz Boucher, and Barb Higgins. So thank you for being here. Did I miss any school board members by any chance? Oh, thank heavens. Just a couple of quick things before we introduce our speakers this morning. Just two upcoming events. We have a ton of events going on at the Chamber. You're all welcome to participate. Check them out on our website. I'm going to highlight just two of them. We have a very cool workshop coming up on the 24th of September. It's hosted by Mainstay Technologies, very cutting edge company, and it's an AI workshop. And I believe this is a no-cost workshop, Bree?
Yes, and it includes lunch.
Yeah, lunch included, no cost. So you can't beat that. It's 11:45 to 1. Space is limited, so if you'd like to come, you got to give us a call because we'll probably fill up. But it's a great deal, and that's a great company, by the way. They'll share some very good information. And then I also wanted to mention our business after hours coming up on October 14th. That's going to be at NHTI Concord's Community College, and Patrick Tompkins, the president of the college, is here somewhere today, so thank you, Patrick. At this point, I'd like to introduce our panel today to talk about what's happening in the Concord School District. So we've got three terrific panelists that will cover a lot of information. Pamela Walsh is serving her first year as president of the Concord Board of Education. Oh, that's right. This seems a little outdated. Sorry, Pamela.
Cut and paste.
So I'm not going to use years anymore in here. But she served as vice president of the board and previously worked as chief of staff for Governor Maggie Hassan, deputy chief of staff and policy director to Governor John Lynch, and press secretary to Governor Jean Shaheen. And she is so we're delighted to have you here, Pamela, and thank you so much. Also, I want to mention Jack Dunn. Jack has done this a number of times for us before. He's in his 12th year as business administrator for the Concord School District. And prior to becoming a business administrator here, he served on the Concord School Board for 3 years. And during his time on the board, he was the chair of the Capital Facilities Committee and the Building Committee that oversaw the construction of the new elementary schools in the area. So that was a big lift back then. And Jack was talking to the Chamber a lot back in those days, so we appreciate that. Prior to serving as a business administrator, he worked in the private sector for 15 years in both computer industry and industrial distribution. And he lives in Concord with his wife Maureen and their 3 children. Also with us here today, Timothy Herbert has served as principal of Concord High School, a role he has held since 2023. In addition to his leadership at CHS, he has also stepped in as in the position of acting superintendent of the Concord School District. Dr. Herbert has more than 15 years of experience in education and school leadership, and prior to becoming principal, he served as assistant principal at Concord High School 2019 to 23, and at Pembroke Academy from 2012 to 2019. He began his career in 2007 as a special ed teacher and a team leader where he developed a strong foundation in supporting diverse learners. Has a bachelor's degree of social science education from Plymouth State, master's in special education from the University of Phoenix, and a master's in principal and special education administration from Riviera University. And he went on to earn a certificate of advanced graduate study in educational leadership and a doctorate in restorative justice education, both from Plymouth State University. And in addition, Dr. Herbert holds a superintendent certification from the state of New Hampshire. So please join us in welcoming our speakers. We're going to start with Pamela.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Gratitude. This is part of our CRTC, and our CRTC students made your bagels by hand this morning, so let's thank them. And we've already introduced the board members are here. Thank you, Tim. As you know, it's been a tough few weeks for our school district, but I'm thankful for all the great community support and for the strong team we have that has really stepped up to ensure a strong start to the school year. Been to several of the schools and the kids are there, they're happy. The cooling systems are working, it's great. And we're really proud of the progress our students are making, as Dr. Herbert is going to discuss in more depth. But post-COVID, we revamped our reading program and our math program and really focused our professional development efforts on that. And we're seeing real gains in student assessment scores in those areas as a result. We've also expanded foreign language offerings at the middle school, and we're working to make algebra more of a default offering for 8th graders at the middle school. And this year's professional development is going to be really focusing on our science curriculum, as well as AI in the classroom and how teachers can use it. It's both scary and exciting at the same time. I went to the professional development the teachers had on it, and I wanted to go to my house and unplug all the Wi-Fi, but we are working to make it work better for everyone. And as we're going to talk more about today, we have 2 major projects that are in the works. We are working with the city on Memorial Field, which was last renovated in the 70s. And at the time, some decisions were made not to do some things that I think we're looking at now to help make a more long-lasting project, and the new middle school. Last night, the building committee met, which includes board members and representatives from the community, a representative from the city, to hear and make recommendations on new cost estimates and a new design at the Runlet site. As some of you may know, this project started in about 2017. And a lot of things have happened since then, including COVID, but also new building requirements, which means we now have to make some changes to the project to meet earthquake codes. That also means that if we did renovations at the middle school, we would also have to do significant upgrades to the structure of the middle school, which would entail removing students in order to meet those earthquake codes. If we put a new HVAC system on the roof, which we would eventually have to do, the structure underneath the building wouldn't meet building codes. So I think that, all along we've looked at renovation versus new, and given the age of the building, given the concrete structure of the building, we had looked, and the estimates, it's about the same for not a better building, and that is actually now it's probably cost more for not a better building renovation versus new. Jack will go through some of the price, but with the building committee's recommendations to remove some things from the building, to build a net zero school, which would get us some significant tax credits, the estimated price is about $155 million. But that price is based on taking advantage of tax credits that renewable energy tax credits and solar tax credits will be expiring soon. That price is also based on starting construction in the spring. If we don't start in the spring, it's another year's worth of cost escalation. So Jack will go into that in more depth, and that additional year is probably about $4 million additional dollars. So the board's going to meet in about 2 weeks, Wednesday the 24th, to discuss next steps, to discuss setting informational sessions and public hearings. One challenge is, of course, the lack of state building aid, and we waited a long time for state building aid, and it was funded for 2 years out of the last 20 years, probably. And in that time, what we've gotten, the cost escalation has probably exceeded what we would have gotten. But building aid isn't the only area that we are being underfunded. Special education, particularly transportation, is a expense that is hitting budgets across the state. And the state is significantly underfunded. It's already underfunded promise to special education costs. We're lucky in Concord. We have a little more flexibility. We run our own transportation department. So we can get students there. Some districts struggle with even that. And we're looking at more creative options, including we developed a new contract with our bus drivers to allow for non-CDL vans so that we can transport some of the students ourselves for special education and homeless students. And we're meeting this morning at the CRTC, which is a great community resource, and I hear a lot about from people. But this year we have fewer students than last year. And it's not because we didn't have the space for the students, and it's not because the students didn't want to go here. There were students that were accepted and weren't able to come because their school districts capped the number of students they sent because the state didn't meet its commitment to fund 75% of the tuition costs. So at the end of last year, they got a big surprise bill when the state aid didn't come in, and they decided that they can't afford that bill in the future. And that is a loss for the workforce of a lot of businesses in this town and for our students and students in our neighboring towns. At the same time, we've been underfunding it. The legislature has been busy. They had 350 bills related to education or municipality regulation in the last legislative session. None of them really included money. None that passed included money. They did include a lot of new requirements. We have a policy committee that spends most of the year trying to catch up with the bills that the legislature passed the year before, and we're struggling to make sense of some of the bills. There is a new bill about no DEI, but the way it is written, we can't figure out exactly what it means because it says we can't do anything that helps any other specific demographic group. But the federal government tells us that we have to do things specifically to help students with disabilities, students who are homeless, students who are English language learners, and these are things that make sense to do because not every student is coming from the same place. Luckily, that law has been enjoined for right now, but it's something we continue to watch. And at the same time, the state is short funding its obligations to public schools, where most of the students in New Hampshire still go to school. They have been diverting tens of millions of dollars to education freedom accounts. And that money, in some cases, is being used to allow very wealthy families to pay for ski lessons for their kids. I would rather see it being used to send more kids to the CRTC or to lower property tax rates, because when they underfund public schools, that money has to be made up somewhere because they don't change our legal obligations. The state hasn't said you're still legally required to make sure every special education student has an adequate education. You're still required to make sure that every homeless student can stay at the school that they were going to when they lost housing. So these continue to be really important things. So talk to your legislators, please. We could use your help. And thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Herbert.
Got a nice little video to kick it off. This shows just highlights of Concord School District.
morning, CHS.
Morning, Crimson Tide Nation, and I have with us in the studio today some of our senior members of the boys ice hockey team, state championship 2025 NHIA Division I championship winners.
I built this from the ground up, and I have these special wheels that have rollers on the side of them.
And we're so grateful for 21C for giving us this opportunity and helping us get this up and running.
And we're here tonight to show you the platform that we created that we call Mustang TV.
Doing this podcast now for over a year, and it's a great way for the school community to hear from each other and celebrate the amazing stories that are here at Concord High.
So as you can see, a variety of different opportunities we have from our students, from our music program, and that's K through 12, with the support of our school board and the support of our community. Some of our performances are at the City Auditorium, some of our performances are at the Capitol Center for the Arts. Because of our facilities here are not able to support the size of the programs that we have, we're able to do these partnerships with our community institutions to provide these opportunities for our students. So again, I emphasize what you see there is a reflection of a K through 12 experience in the Concord School District with partnerships with the community yourselves. Here, the next slide we have up here is, I don't know, probably I'm one of the few people who paid attention to national scores coming out, assessment scores for reading, math, and science. If anybody else in this room paid attention to those, you know that the nation is on a downward trend, unfortunately. Some may contribute it to the COVID. This class of students were impacted by COVID. Their instrumental instructional years were remote or in hybrid models where they're coming and going from their schools. Here in the Concord School District, the story is different. Although our numbers are not where we want them to be, we saw substantial growth in all three categories this past year using the New Hampshire SAS iReady assessment as well as our PSAT scores and SAT scores. So although the scores are not where we want them to be, we are getting close or surpassing pre-pandemic levels. And not to get too much into the weeds, but we're moving students from substantially below proficient to approaching proficient, and those who were approaching proficient to proficient now. So we are seeing growth across all categories. And that is we attribute to, it's not by happenstance, it's because of alignment of curriculum K through 12, making sure we're aligned with national standards, training for our teachers and instructional practices around best practices to meeting the needs of all learners in their classrooms, as well as authentic learning experiences that improve on students' problem solving and critical thinking skills. Those combined over the next few years, we anticipate that Concord School District will continue this upward trend. Again, another great data point. Post-COVID, we were in the mid 85 to 84% across the board for student attendance. We're not quite pre-COVID student attendance, daily attendance, but 95, 93% of our students, a percent attendance rate on a daily basis. 95% of our students are coming to school. They see a value in what they're learning here. They see a value in the support they get here. They want to be here. want to touch on a few of the grants that the Concord School District has been awarded. The Project Aware grant is a proactive, and we call it Tier 1, where you build systems of supports that are experienced by every student in your building throughout their day, throughout their classes, throughout their interactions with adults in the building, that set them up to be successful social-emotionally, help them to self-identify needs they have, and know where the resources are in the buildings or in our community. Again, this is a community partnership in our community to take care of themselves. So when they're here, they're present. They're not being pulled away by other things that are challenging them, and whether it be personal or in their academic lives. This Project Aware grant has helped us set up both from K through 12 as well at both elementary, middle, and high school systems and proactive events to help students become more aware of healthy lifestyles, things they can do to manage their time so they're not stressed out. It's built into our health curriculum, so it's something that students are getting through our classes that they take as a required course. In addition to that, we have the CMHI grant, which is substantial, as you can see, and that too focuses on mental health and mental well-being. That is what we would call in the education realm a Tier 2. That's when there is a need identified and a student needs additional support beyond the everyday support they get to be successful. Our partnership with our community mental health centers, River Bend, as well as others, has allowed us to provide faster intakes for our students. In the past, it's been up to 3 months. Our students are getting in weeks. It has provided on-site therapeutic interventions. It has provided counseling appointments here at the schools so that the families who are, have a barrier of traveling, it can happen here so that they are not worried about getting their child somewhere when they may not have a vehicle. So these grants have helped us to really support our students in their mental health, but in addition to that, look at our systems of supports at our schools from K through 12 to ensure we're meeting all needs of students. Capital projects. Do you want to touch base on this?
Speak a couple minutes for that, sure. That's all right. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. So the middle school project has at 100% design development. So the building committee last night met and made recommendations to the full school board, which will meet on September 24th to take those value engineering and some financial information under consideration. The net cost estimate right now is at $155 million, but as President Walsh said, there's going to be public hearings and a number of other things over the next month and a half to take those next steps. The other thing is we're working cooperatively with the city on Memorial Field. Their last master plan, if I understand from Recreation Director Gill, was 1974, the year I was born. So the document might be near and dear to my heart, I don't know. But there is a subcommittee working on a proposal, and the cost estimate, again, for budgetary purposes, is between 20 and 30 million. And the district and the city are working collaboratively on how we can implement that and mitigate it, in addition to try to do the middle school and a number of other city projects. So this was from last night's presentation about what the South Street site will look like. It will be a multi-phased approach from putting the school where the existing athletic fields are, taking the existing school, which is here, and I believe the school will be approximately 20 feet from the old school to the new school during construction. And then we will knock down the school and prepare the fields. So ideally, depending on timing, it could be fall or mid-holiday and middle of winter of 29 or 30, depending on how fast we move and how well things go. As I mentioned to them last night, when we did the elementary project and doing all three of those at one time, they were done on time and under budget by about $7.5 million. No promises, but the team that's been put together is almost the same team that built those schools. So we're hoping that we can achieve that same success. Right now, the board is also using a trust fund that it has maintained since 2005 to mitigate the tax impact from this, and that will have by June 30th about $15 million to offset the impact, the tax impact of this. The teen pods.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to this. So this is the structure of a portion of the building, and what's considered this as 8th grade classes. In middle school, you put students together by teams, and the teams are your core teachers. So science, social studies, English, math, hypothetically. We know at that level students benefit from integrated instruction, working together, developing their social as well as their academic skills. Having them closely connected in this manner, one provides a more of a team feel, team approach. They're navigating for over 50% of their schedule amongst these 4 classrooms, and it provides a maximum opportunity for teacher collaboration for integrated instruction at that level. So this is 1 floor, but this is stacked up 3 floors, correct? 3 floors. Each grade level is in their pod, and they would have this ability to interact throughout there. So again, a 200 and some odd thousand square foot school, 200 square foot school is made to feel a little bit smaller and their community a little bit tighter by this structure, which is a known best practice at the middle school level for that age range, supporting them with their social emotional well-being as well as their academics.
So for our budget for 2025-2026, the general fund budget is a little over $111 million. And these are the 3 major funds that we're highlighting. The food service fund, which is the federal program for feeding the students. And then we have our grant funds that are managed in a separate fund, and right now that about $3.9 million. Most of that is made up of entitlements that we get each year. Right now there are several funds that we are waiting for, including McKinney-Vento Title I and Title III. But our grant manager, Ellen Desmond, also does a great job about going out and getting grants for one-shots, including safety and security, like the DOJ grant, where we receive that, and we're putting safety and security improvements into our schools, as well as other grants that she goes out and gets. Student transportation services, as you heard from President Walsh, we do have our own transportation service. We strongly believe that that was beneficial definitely during COVID when we were delivering meals to families and keeping our bus drivers employed. What we've seen post-COVID and most recently last year as the fiscal cliff hit for the end of the COVID money, we saw significant increases in third-party transportation. And a lot of that is due to laws that are on that we're required to comply with. So we've had to use third party, whether we're short with a bus driver. All of our fleet up until this year was CDL required, which has a high bar to achieve. We've negotiated with the UAW and now have a non-CDL track. So if anybody is interested in driving a bus, it'd be like, yeah, it's like driving a 1-bedroom apartment U-Haul. That's all it is. So, but there's noise in the back. So, and there's no wall in between.
It's tempting, Jack, but I already have a part-time job.
It'd be a good community service thing. I know that mayor thing is a community service, but driving a bus, come on. But we also have parent reimbursements. We have parents that we pay to transport their kids, depending on whether they're special needs, they are foster, or it's a court placement. We also have 50-50 splits that we do with districts where we are the district of liability, but they go to another district. This may have to do with McKinney-Vento. So there's a lot of moving parts to that. Oh, McKinney-Vento, sorry. That deals with students that are declared homeless, and then that points to where a district of liability would be. It's wherever they went homeless, and we're responsible for making sure we educate them, whether they're in another district. They do annual meetings, which means it's in the best interest of the child. So we may have a student that is in Nashua, but they were declared homeless here, so we have to pay for that transport if they're coming from here and going to Nashua, because that may be the best place, or vice versa. So Again, that was 1.7 million over budget. At the end of last year, there were 81 kids that we were transporting. As of right now, there's 27 kids. So we've brought that down. With this non-CDL fleet, we've been able to hire several drivers, so we're right now still trying to bring that down more because a number of those kids are Concord to Concord kids who may go to a charter school or, again, court placement, or they have special needs and they need their own bus or vehicle to drive in, and we may not have the drivers, but we're working to do that. Let me see if this is my slide. Yep, CRTC funding. I just want to make sure this is the one I want. Okay. One of the other difficulties we're having, you may have heard also in prior, about CRTC as it relates to, we're down a little bit on our enrollment, but part of the driver is that the state is not picking up its full portion of the tuition. There is a 75-25 split with the state. 75% the state pays of the tuition. So for example, last year it was like $8,100. They're supposed to pay 75%. The local district pays 25%. When that doesn't happen and there's a shortfall and the state doesn't pay its portion, we send a third bill to the district and they have to pick up that portion. So that is some of the unanticipated expenses that districts may have seen last year. So this is just an example of one. 25% would be $1,647, which they would get billed for their normal, but then the state shortfalled in 2021 by $712. That amount now has ballooned to $2,655. So if you have 70 kids coming, you times it by that, it adds up pretty quick. We did a 5-year trend. It's basically the same slide, but Hopkinton is an example. This is what they would see they've seen each year, and then you times that by the number of kids they have coming, they're getting a supplemental bill. Let me see if I have anything. So to put it in context, the state has gone, instead of 100% of their 75%, last year they paid 56% of their 75%, which is $2,655. We had the bill, and they paid $3,400. So that is why we are seeing declining enrollments, as you heard about districts capping what they can send. Okay. 350 bills, I think you somewhat covered that. The one thing we're hopefully we'll see is HB 773 that passed requires the state to pay 80% of the special education costs. They have been really funding between 56 and 67% of that. And I think our bill we submitted this year was over 1.4 million. So we're calculating our budget to get 67% of that, but with that new bill, we might be able to tweak that come October. Oh yeah, sorry, it's not 80% of all special education. It's approved, and there's a max it has to hit. I think it's 59 or 61,000. Once a child hits that of eligible expenses, then the percentage of that of over and above starts to get reimbursed. So it's complicated, but it's money we have to go after. Looking forward, I'll let you want to grab that? There's two looking forward.
As a district looking forward in instructional and academics, data-driven instruction, as I showed you earlier, our math, reading, and science scores, continuing to make decisions around our professional development for teachers, our curriculum for students, and our learning opportunities for students, using data to drive our decision-making. More student voice, something that we have increased over the last couple of years, but we always continue to look for new ways to get students involved in leadership opportunities in our buildings. At the school board level, we have student reps, but we want them to take ownership of what we're doing around here and be partners with us in this, because ultimately every decision we make in our school district impacts them. More extended learning opportunities and work-based learning. I emphasized earlier the partnership between us and you. It's one community supporting our students, and many of our students, over 150 students last year, went out into the community and did either paid or non-paid internships. Some of them turned into part-time, some of them into full-time jobs. Yesterday, I met with a young man who I've been working with, mentoring for the last 3 years here at the high school, and he came to me to advocate for early graduation in January. Walked over to the SAU, insisted on meeting with me because he wanted me to hear about this experience. We locked him last year. He was having some struggles focusing on his academics, and we locked him into extended learning opportunity with a local HVAC company. Not only did he latch on to the idea of timeliness and showing up for his job, the HVAC company, but he did it at school. And he put in extra time and efforts on his academics. He came to see me yesterday. He's required 22 credits to graduate. He has 21.5. All right. He's got a full course load this year with an extended learning opportunity of a paid internship. And if he graduates in January, they are going to pay for his education. And by June, when he walks across the stage to receive his diploma, he will be walking into a $63,000 a year job to start his graduation at the age of 18. Yes. So that is not made possible without the collaboration of our high school to CTE to the community. All of us come together to give our students the best possible opportunity. Looking forward, middle school project is going to be big. It impacts instruction, it impacts our community. What we do know that the price of the school is we get where it falls. However, this is an investment for future. We're talking about my example of this young man going off into what he has for an opportunity at the age of 18. We need to continue to offer more and more opportunities like that. And in addition to that, we need to evolve with the education trends of the future. We need to be prepared for artificial intelligence and other things that are going to impact educational experience for students. And what we do know, where we are right now with our existing middle school, we're not going to be able to continue to support it. We're not going to be able to continue to provide that 21st century learning experience for all students in that situation. We have the superintendent search. The school board will be talking about that more in the future to look for a permanent solution to our situation right now where we are without a commander-in-chief, so to speak. Our budget. We continue to look at our budget. We look at our revenues that we're getting through grants. We look at the opportunities we can expand on for our students, both in our K through 12 experience, our CT experience. But we continue to look at how to do a fiscally responsible budget, considering everything we have to provide for students in this community. And the last thing I would like to emphasize in the future, open enrollment. It's a bill that will, I'm assuming in January, we're going to hear more about that. Potentially in January, we'll hear more about this. Open enrollment allows for a student to declare that they desire to go to any central school in the state. They are responsible for transporting themselves if it's outside of their home district. This is something that could have a major impact on schools such as us, who have some robust programming. We're located in a major city in the state of New Hampshire, so we have a lot more opportunities for these work-based learning situations and internships. We may be appealing, and that's something that we're preparing as a district to be able to adjust for the future potential enrollment of students from other communities coming to us to get the same opportunities our students in the Concord community have. Questions?
You gonna do that, Tim?
Yes, this is for Jack Dunn. So I think last year there was $1.5 million in the budget for buses. How many of those buses do not require CDL drivers?
So right now we have 26 big buses and 12 small CDL buses. We now have 8 non-CDL buses. And 3 of those we had already had. They were mostly one van and two small 14, what they call 14+1s. They look just like those yellow buses you see running around, but one is CDL required, one is non-CDL. So in this year's budget, we asked the board for $1 million out of the special ed trust fund to be able to buy additional non-CDL vehicles or mitigate the third party if we need to. We have purchased 5 more, 4 non-CDL 14+1s and a 10-passenger van. So we're in of that $1 million about 300,000. But when you look and you transport students, it can be anywhere from $250 to $650 a day for a third-party provider.
So though that $1 million, is this an additional $1 million?
No, I'm assuming you're related to the $1 million that was
So the
passed in
1.5,
March.
that was.
We also had in our capital budget funding for our regular replacement of school buses.
The replacement.
Oh, yeah, we bond, so when we did the bond for this, we always had buses in there
Right,
because
right.
the rate is very advantageous, and we bought 10 CDL buses.
Okay. All right.
In addition, we received a grant for $1,035,000 for electric buses. Gary, you've been involved in those conversations, we appreciate that. And we're doing upgrades in cooperation with the city to the conf to handle those 3 buses. Those 3 buses were $1,032,000, and then we got about another $250,000 to $300,000 in infrastructure we're going to be putting in. The timeline for that is hopefully this month, the groundwork will be done. October, Thomas buses, which is what our buses that we buy. October, they should start building it in the plant, which I believe is in South Carolina, and then we expect those buses to show up at the earliest in December. So that's
Are
where
those
that's at.
CDL or the electric buses?
They are
CDL?
77 passenger buses with air brakes. So you not only need the CDL, you also need the air brake endorsement, which some of our current buses have that requirement too.
And I'm going to ask, first of all, I really appreciate the partnership between the chamber and the school district and programs like Castle. We couldn't do that without your endorsement, so thank you very much for that. And Ken shared a really cool story. And so what I want to ask you, for the benefit of businesses in the room, if someone's interested in getting more involved to provide those types of opportunities, how does that work? How do they do that?
We have, some of you may have met her, she does attend many chamber events, Jessamine Rockwell. She is our ELO coordinator here at the high school. A work-based learning person in CT, is that Kate Amaral?
Yes.
So those are our 2 on-site personnel that help to coordinate that, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of it is students seeking it themselves. They develop an interest and we support them with requirements. We go through what they have to look for in a site-based learning experience, and they will come out and they will advocate for themselves to land in these positions. But we do have, I think, somewhere around, it's over 100 partners right now in the greater Concord community for our work-based learning experiences for students. But you could reach out to Jessamine Rockwell and Kate Amaral. I can share their contact information with you. Yep.
Other questions? I've got 1 or 2 more, but Patrick.
So could you speak a little bit about the effect of various federal funding going on right now, and what threats there have been to funding, and then what threats are on the horizon, and then how you think you might deal with it?
The threats seem to change daily. Right now, our mental health grants, we're waiting to see if they've been continued. The deadline is September 30th. And I will say there was an op-ed in the Washington Post yesterday from the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Secretary of Education talking about how kids don't need mental health interventions, they need fresh air. And I agree that, and strong families, and I agree that kids need strong families and fresh air and exercise, and we try and provide all of these things. But the op-ed showed a really fundamental misunderstanding of what the mental health supports in the district are, and really some canards about, encouraging kids to transition, or, these are not things that our counselors are doing. They're working with kids to make sure that they can succeed. They're helping younger kids learn how to self-regulate so that they can sit still and pay attention in a classroom. So, it's a little, so we're worried about those grants, obviously. What's going on in the federal level, with the Department of Education, our title grants, which pay for special education, which, the federal government, when it passed it, said it would pay 40% of the cost of special education services. It does not pay anything close to that. And so we're worried about that. And, professional development, all of those things, I think beyond every budget cycle, we used to just have to worry about the federal budget cycle. Okay, it's funded. Now we have rescissions. And so what will happen? We're worried about it all. We're watching it all really closely on the mental health. We're making contingency plans.
I think the other thing on the federal side is Medicaid. We just met yesterday with Tim and I and the special ed staff talking about the changes that could be coming July 1 for Medicaid. Last year, that brought in $838,000. So if they make adjustments to that, when they did last time, we went from 1.3 million down to like 400,000, and now we've been slowly being able to get that back up. But potential changes to that. The other thing is that the federal government goes to more block grants to the state. Obviously, there's new leadership, and we wish Caitlin well over there, having been around a while. But hopefully, she can help mitigate some of these things and get the state funding. There's also the the court action that's being taken as it relates to adequacy. So keeping an eye on that and what happens there. So the state and federal is challenging, but then putting the local pressure on taxpayers is something that's at the forefront of the board and us administratively.
Other questions? If not, I want to thank Pamela, Jack, and Tim. Thank you so much, and thank you to Concord High School and CRTC for hosting us here this morning. And also thank you to Novus Engineering for sponsoring today's event. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.